episode of the IC Lounge is sponsored in part by the Montgomery County Probate Court. From wills and estates to vehicle registration, business licenses, and elections, the Montgomery County Probate Court is committed to serving the citizens of Montgomery County with courtesy and efficiency, and to protect the rights and liberties of all who appear before the court. For more information about the Montgomery County Probate Court and its services, visit montgomeryprobatecourtal.gov or call 334-832-1240. Want to transform your workplace environment? Imperial Consulting Services Group collaborates with organizations of any size to build diverse, inclusive, tech-driven workplaces through fostering responsible leadership and cultivating engaged employees. We offer DEI and belonging consulting and training, strategic planning, and professional, organizational, and design services. Put our proven strategies to work for you. Schedule your appointment today at imperialcsg.com.
Welcome to the IC Lounge, where we embrace the diversity of conversation. Today we have a deeply moving episode dedicated to women who have experienced the devastation of losing an infant or pregnancy, with 1 in 4 pregnancies ending in miscarriage and 1 in 160 pregnancies ending in stillbirth. There are a few of us who hasn't been touched either directly or indirectly by infant mortality. Joining us today is Terri Reynolds, who is sharing her personal journey through losing an infant and how it led to create Levi's Grace. Thank you for being here, Terri.
Thank you for having me, my friend.
I'm so excited to have you on my couch.
Me too.
So before we kick it off, if you could tell our listeners and followers a little bit about yourself.
My name is Terri Reynolds, and I live here in Montgomery. I have a wonderful husband, and Vinny Reynolds, and 3 beautiful children who are here. I have 1 son in heaven looking down. I'm an attorney. I work with nonprofits and local governments across the state, and just trying to do my little piece to make the community better, and very passionate about sharing our story of Levi, and hopefully using his life and our experience as a way to help other mothers and families that are going through this, just so that they know that even in the most trying, difficult moments of their life, that there is a light at the end of this tunnel. There will be silver linings that they can find, and I'm just thankful for my time with my sweet Levi. And I appreciate you for having me here today, Angela, and giving me a chance to talk about him and his legacy and what that means to our family.
I'm so excited. You're such a girl boss. I love it.
I'm trying, girl. I'm trying.
So, well, we're going to start off. If you could describe what it's like to our viewers when you heard the initial news that something was very wrong with your pregnancy.
Yeah, and I'll say every year we celebrate Levi's birthday. And so on July 6th, we celebrated his 5th birthday. But let me just give you the story of Levi. And so Levi is our 3rd child. And when I was pregnant with Levi, when I found out I was pregnant with Levi, I was already about 2 or 3 months into the pregnancy. And I didn't realize it. And part of the reason was because my daughter was just 5 or 6 months old. And so, when we realized that we were pregnant with Levi, my husband and I were excited. We were a little nervous as well because we had not planned to have 2 children that close together. But we were just mostly excited about what our new life was going to be. But for me, very early on, even before we learned anything was wrong, something felt off. It didn't feel like my other 2 pregnancies, even from, how my belly was forming. But I knew that inside I had no external reason to think anything was wrong. But I remember when I went to the first doctor's appointment, I mentioned that to my OBGYN, and he said, it's probably fine. Like, let's just keep going. He's fine. Everything looks good. because of that age that I was at, I was over 35 at that point, so they did some extra genetic testing. We found out very early he was a boy, but there was one reading on that test that was abnormally high. My doctor did not even mention it because he said, Terry, these things happen. Like, let's not worry about it. There's nothing we can do until we come back and do the next ultrasound. He was trying to comfort me, which I appreciate. But in my spirit, Angela, I just knew. I can't explain it, but I just knew something was different. I didn't know exactly what it was. So we went back for that first ultrasound. I think I was probably at that point maybe 16, 17 weeks. And when the lady, did the thing on my belly and we looked up on the screen, you couldn't see anything. Like it was just a mess. Like it was jumbled. You couldn't get a good reading. You could see something moving, but you know how typically when you get an ultrasound, you see an arm or you see a head. You see very clear parts moving around. We couldn't see anything, and it was just by God's grace that Vinny was with me at that ultrasound. Normally, this is our third pregnancy. We've been through this before. Right. You go on to work, Vinny. I got this. But something, and again, I think I'm a big believer in God having a plan for our life, and I believe that was part of his plan. And Vinny was there, and that was when my OBGYN said to me, he pulled us aside and he said, this is not a viable pregnancy. And he explained to us why there was no amniotic fluid in the womb. And so that was our first indication that...
No heartbeat or anything?
There was a heartbeat. He was fine at that moment, but there was no amniotic fluid. And so without that, he couldn't develop properly. And so for your viewers, let me explain what the issue was. We later found out he had cysts in his kidneys. All right, and why that matters is because when a baby is forming in the womb, their lungs are like two pieces of stone. And then when their kidneys start functioning and they start using the bathroom in the womb, that liquid turns those stones into sponges so that when they are born into the world, they can breathe. And so without that amniotic fluid, without that his kidneys functioning, his lungs couldn't properly develop. And so I do want to give a shout out to our OBGYN. He's here in Montgomery. His name is Gregory Waller.
That's who delivered my last
Really?
Dr. Waller is the truth.
I love Dr. Waller. And, one of the things, Angela, I know we talk about particularly as Black women are finding doctors who will listen to us.
Right.
Who will take everything that we say and act on it and not try and tell us, no this, no that. Dr. Waller has been that for me through Levi, through a cancer diagnosis last year. He sent me off for tests when my other doctor said, oh, everything's all right. Dr. Waller sent me off just because I said I was concerned about it. Turned out it was cancer. So I have to give a shout out to him. That day when he told us that, he took me and Vinny, he prayed with us. He said, we're going to pray for a miracle, and whatever you need from me, I will do. So he said the next step was to go to UAB.
Okay.
All right, so we went to UAB. I'm sweating talking about this. Let me get this because it's. I'm going back there to this place. So we go to UAB, and the doctors there were a little more. I don't want to say callous, but they were very direct in that, hey, you've got two options. You can either get an abortion or you can see this pregnancy through, and he's probably not going to survive. At that point, I was 19 weeks and 5 days. So if we had wanted to get an abortion in Alabama at that time, before the new laws passed, you had to get it before 20 weeks, which would have given me 3 days to decide. Now, for us, there wasn't a decision. We knew we were going to carry it through. That was not ever on the table for us, but for I could never tell another mother or family what to do, but I just imagine for someone who may want to make that decision, having 2 or 3 days to decide something like that would be incredibly hard.
Yeah.
So Vinny and I decided we're going to see this through, and if God's plan is for Levi to be here, he will be. If it's God's plan for him not to be here, that's his plan.
That's his will.
That's his will.
That's right.
And so, we went through, we tried experimental treatment at Johns Hopkins. We did a lot of things. But to answer your question, and get back to your question, the moment that we really found out that day at UAB that there was absolutely nothing we could do it was one of the worst days of our lives. And the next few months were, in some ways, a really big blur. It was an extended pain because I'm visibly pregnant.
Right.
And we did not share with a lot of people what was going on. And so it was an extended pain of kind of this looming thing that was going to happen, that we didn't know what it was going to look like, and so it was a very difficult period for me and for Vinny. And we had 2 small kids at the time too that still needed their mom and dad whole. So difficult emotionally, heartbroken, traumatized, scared, fearful, hopeful. It was just a mix of all of these very complicated emotions that I think for Vinny and I up to that point, we've been kind of riding high with life. And so it was just the most difficult period of my life, without a doubt.
So with that being said, and all that you've gone through with that journey, or what you went through during that journey, for Johns Hopkins, to Dr. Waller, UAB and Johns Hopkins, what did you do to prepare yourself for the inevitable? I know you had a positive thought process, still hopeful that God would allow your son to live, but what did you do? And then, a lot of times people want to touch you and they want to win the shower. Where are you registered? That's a question I ask people and stuff like that. So how did you handle those types of situations? Or just getting ready for the end, the delivery of your son?
So my nature is to kind of turn inward. That has always been my nature. And so if I'm being honest, and I'm by no means am I saying this is the healthy way. I think I handled, externally I was fine. Internally I was a complete wreck. And so at the time I was working at an association downtown, and when I talk about little lessons that I've learned for this, where and who you work for are critically important things in our lives, and they're they impact so much of our life, our external life. At the time, I worked at the Association of County Commissions, and my boss was a man named Sonny Brassfield, who was phenomenal. And I went to him and I said, I cannot come back here to work. I can't see people every day. I can't deal with, and our work was very people intensive, so we had people coming in all the time. I couldn't deal with that, with people asking about the pregnancy, with me having to tell people over and over again what was going on, or me just pretending like everything was okay. And my boss, he said, absolutely, that's absolutely fine. You work from home.
Oh, wow.
You do as much as you can or as little as you can, but you work from home and we'll figure it out. And so that gave me one space where I was could just push, isolate. But I'll be honest with you, Angela, I had some of the people that were closest to me really knew how to care for me and nurture me during that time. But I made it difficult for people to be there for me because I just didn't want to deal with it. And I did not want to deal with it for a couple of years. It's only been within the last few years where I've gone to counseling to talk about the trauma, the post-traumatic trauma of dealing with that extended grieving process. So, but some of the things that I did do that I think were good for me was I prayed regularly. I journaled a lot. My children were mechanisms for me to just kind of focus on them. And so I focused in on them a lot.
You were a highly functioning depressed person?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know the feeling. I understand.
Highly
done that.
Highly functional. People who saw me, I got plenty of times like, how are you? I don't know how you're doing this.
That's right.
You're so strong.
That's right.
All of these things. And that was all out here inside. I was completely broken.
How many people walk around like that today?
All the time.
All the time.
All the time. And I've taken a lot of lessons from that experience, and I credit all of those things to Levi. I tell people I was able to carry him for 37 weeks and 5 days,
Wow.
and he taught me so much in that time period. And so, like, I feel like from all the things that I've learned, because I'm a fundamentally different person because of him, he brought me closer to my faith, and I trust my instincts more. I am fearless in a way that I wasn't before, and I credit all of that to his life and our time together.
How would you say, and you can, we can pass the question if you like, but how did this impact your marriage?
It was, in the end, it brought me and Vinny much closer. Took a while though, because Vinny and I are both the same in that we got this. We got this.
And that's a man's nature anyway.
That's a man's nature anyway. And that's certainly Vinny's nature. It's one of the things that was attractive to him about me, attracted to me to him, because he is a man that has always got it under control. I don't have to worry about stuff because I know Vinny's got it. But in this situation, I think for him as a man, it was difficult because he couldn't do anything.
Right.
He couldn't do anything. He couldn't carry the burden for me. He couldn't, we went to every doctor's appointment together. He couldn't fix it. And I think that was incredibly hard for him. I couldn't be there for him because I was so broken. And so it took some time after we lost Levi, after we had his memorial service, after the immense pain of what we went through starting to soften a little bit, where to really talk about like what we were feeling.
Wow.
And so ultimately it has made us much stronger. And I thought we were as strong as could be, but you really, honestly, Angela, for us, Vinny, I saw this came up in our memories on Facebook recently before we found out about Levi and his kidney condition. Vinny had made a post saying, like, from the time we met, it was like a highlight reel. Like, everything had just been going, and it had been going so great. Like, we were on top of the world, felt like. And so to go from that feeling to, just the lowest possible feeling,
Right.
Was difficult for both of us. But
Wow.
it's the fire that makes us stronger as couples. And so that's where we are now.
Well, on July the 6th, 2019, you delivered Levi Austin. Is that right? Can you describe the experience of his birth and the emotions at that time?
Yeah. I'll try to do it without crying.
Okay. Just don't make me cry. I'm not an easy crier now. Don't you make me cry.
So we were supposed to have Levi at UAB. Had this birth plan, all the stuff we were going to do. Talked with all these doctors. And we had the date set and everything. He was due, I think it was July, actually 27th was his actual due date, or the planned delivery date. I had been in the house, hadn't been seeing anybody, and so it was July 4th weekend, and one of my dear friends, my sister, is in Atlanta, and her parents are like my parents. Her father was a surgeon, her aunt was a retired pediatric nurse who worked in the NICU.
Oh, wow.
And so I said, you know what? She said, why don't you come over and just get out of the house a little bit? And we weren't supposed to travel. Doctor said, don't travel. And I told Vinny, I was like, I need to get out of the house. Like, I need to just be around, out of Montgomery, and be around people that I know love and care for us. And I was like, if something happens, we're going to be staying with a surgeon, and we got a NICU, retired NICU nurse.
All the bases are covered.
All the bases are covered. She's 2 minutes up the street, so if something happens, we'll be fine. Thinking nothing would happen. All my children wanted to stay in the womb as long as they could. So all of them had to be induced. So in my mind, I was like, he's not coming early. So we get there. Never forget that the day before Levi was born, we took our children. My friend has a young son the same age as my son. We went to this water park. The kids had this great time. I still have pictures from that day. That evening, Vinny and I went out. It was the first time we had just gone out in months since we had found out. We went to Dave & Buster's in Atlanta, played some video games, and I was feeling good. We got back that evening around 10 o'clock, and I started having pains through the night, back hurting, all this stuff. Angela, I didn't know my first 2 kids were induced, and so it really didn't strike me until that morning that I'm in labor right now. And so I called my friend's aunt. She comes over. We were going to just head back to Montgomery and try and get to the doctor. She said, oh, no. She said, we're going to the hospital. I know people at this hospital. We're going to go to the hospital. We check into the hospital. The doctor said, you're going to have this baby in 2 hours.
Oh, wow.
They're excited. I said, wait a minute. Let me tell you the circumstances. And so it really and truly, when I talk about God, the doctors call UAB, and they were amazing. And I still don't know how they pulled this off. We had Levi there. I swear there wasn't another person in that hospital that day. It felt like that. I didn't hear a baby cry. I didn't see any people. I don't know if they had us in a special wing or something, but we had him. We had time with him. You know,
I saw the picture.
Yeah, we had time with him. He was 7 pounds and 3 ounces, and you know he was born still. And I knew the moment. I was very present in the delivery. I knew the moment that he passed. But we had that time with him. My parents got on the road. My parents were in Florence. They had a 4.5-hour drive. That was before my father passed, and my mom still talks about it. He talked about it, that they drove in silence the whole way. And my dad had that left foot on the pedal. They got there about 10 minutes after he was born, and so we all had time with him. I was worried about getting him home. Like, we're in Atlanta, how are we going to get him home? And the nurse comes in and she gives me this big old list of funeral homes, and she in that area, and I'm thinking, goodness, because we had all this stuff planned, you know, how we were going to do this. We knew we chose to have him cremated so we could have him at the house with us. And the nurse brings in this big packet, and she says, now I can't tell you which funeral home to choose, but she said, if there's one in this big packet that has a red star by it, you may want to call them. So we called them. They took care of everything, didn't charge us a dime.
Oh, wow.
Made sure everything had expedited the process so that we could bring him home. And so when I checked out of the hospital and I went back to my friend's home, my parents were there. All the people that loved us were there. The people that couldn't be there were on FaceTime, and we really just gathered together. And so, you know, as difficult as that time was, that day was, I just feel like it happened. Like I was supposed to be away from here. I wasn't supposed to be at UAB where I had this experience of, you know, the doctors there were really interested in trying to figure out why did this mutation occur and all these things about why, the science behind what happened. These doctors just cared about me, about us. And it's not a criticism of UAB. They're great doctors, okay? But I needed to be there. I needed to have that space. Vinny needed to have that space. And he was brought into the world exactly the way he was supposed to be. I have no doubt about that in my mind. So it was a difficult day, but I can look back on it and I know it's exactly how it was meant to happen.
Oh, wow. I don't know what to say, Terri.
It's fine.
I mean,
No.
you know, during this process of, we've talked about this before, but to go and do my homework on it, to have you on my show, it just really did something to me as a mother who's birthed 2 children already. Like you said, you already have been a mother twice. And there's just no words, you know, that you are an awesome woman, you know, to be able to go through what you have gone through, you and your husband, your family, your friends. I'm so blessed to know you, you know what I'm saying? And that God just really did. It was all God, how all that happened, just listening to you tell the story. It's one thing to read it on paper, but to hear you tell it, it's nothing but God. He's so awesome.
He's so awesome, and he works in our lives in ways that we don't understand. And one of the things I've kind of taken from this, and you know, Angela, you know this, that since we lost Levi, thank you. Since we lost Levi, you know, 2 years later, I lost my dad to cancer. 2 years later, I was diagnosed with cancer.
And I hate that word. I hate the C word.
I hate the C word too.
I've lost so many people in my family that I love to cancer. I hate that word.
It's don't get me started on that, because
that's
it's a lot of money being made off a lot of heartache with that. But the things that we've gone through subsequently, our experiences with Levi prepared us for these things. In a way, like my dad and I were like this, and I know it broke my heart when we lost him, but I handled it in a different way because of what I went through with Levi. I was also, when we lost Dad, I was pregnant with Savannah, our rainbow baby. And I handled my cancer diagnosis in a different way because of what we went through with Levi. My business, Levitate Legal, I started it very soon after he was born. And Levitate, first 4 letters of Levitate is Levi. And so, you know, as a mom, when you have a baby, and I want to say this to your listeners, because I know it's difficult when somebody you know has gone through a miscarriage or stillbirth. You don't always know what to say or do.
Right.
And, you know, and I'll be honest, I had some friends that I'm not as close to because they didn't know what to say or do, you know, and it's taken me some time to realize how difficult it was for them, you know, it's not always instinctive on how to be there for somebody. And that's something that I've learned through this process. But when someone you know goes through this, they don't, just because that child is not physically present, that instinct for motherhood is still there, right? Like, so for me, I couldn't bring Levi home with me, but my body and my mind and my heart and my spirit were still in mothering mode. Okay, and so, you know, I poured a lot because I couldn't pour it into Levi. I poured a lot to work. Right. And you know, the clients that I had at that time, they was getting stuff like this because it was a coping mechanism for me. Right. It's a way for me to take that energy that I had inside to care for him, and I cared for that. And so, you know, I just want to implore your listeners to remember that just because that child, that baby is not there physically, that instinct is still there with that mother and that father, you know, and to try and be cognizant of that. And don't tell people, not to cut you off. Yeah. Don't tell people to have a time to grieve. No, yeah. You know, I have a very dear friend of our family. She lost her son, and he was probably 40-some years old. But it was as if he was Levi's age to her. Yes. And all of her siblings and stuff, they just didn't know what to say. Yeah. They tried to avoid the conversation. But she called me one day. She was getting ready to pass the cemetery where he was recently buried. And I said, I'm here. If you got to cry, you driving, that's not safe. But if you need to scream in this phone as you're passing the cemetery, that's fine. I'm on the phone. Just do it. If you need to pick up the phone, I tell my friends this, if you're going through and you need to just call and just scream and just let it out,
just do that. Sometimes you just want people to listen.
Listen, that's it.
I don't need you to tell me anything. I just
Yeah.
need you to listen.
Yeah.
I just need the vent, get it off, and and I'm gonna go on about my
That's
business.
the best. I think that's the best thing that you can do when you don't know what to do. Just be there. Find a way to be there. Whether it's just calling, hey, if you don't feel like talking right now, that's fine. I just want you to know I'm thinking about you. If you know the things that make that person smile or happy, it might
That's
be
right.
a note, it may be sending something to the house,
right.
but just making that effort to remind them that they are not alone.
That's right.
Because and it will vary from person to person, but a lot of times when you're at your worst in those darkest hours, you tend to isolate.
You do.
I think that's probably true for a lot of folks, is to isolate and withdraw. And so even that presence, it's not solutions. I think a lot of times we want to offer a solution. There is no solution to this. There is no, well, you can have another baby, or it was God's plan. Don't say those things. I want to say those very clearly.
Right.
Don't say those things. Just be there. Just be present. Just offer your love and support. And sometimes that's even silence. Just sitting in silence together, can be really powerful.
Right. So let me ask you this about the rainbow baby.
Yeah.
Did she have to be induced, or did she come on?
She had to be induced. In part, I asked for her to be induced because she was due on Christmas, and I was like, look, I ain't trying to be here on Christmas Day. I got 2 other kids at home, and so
you know why I asked that, right?
Why did she?
Because Levi was special.
Yeah.
He was special.
Yeah.
That he came on his own.
He was the only one. She would have. They induced her. She would not have come on Christmas. They did tell me she would not have come on her due date. You're absolutely right. That's something special about it. He came exactly when he was supposed to come.
That's my dad's birthday too.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Another good friend of our family, Sandra Netta's birthday. She would love to hear that, But yeah,
it's a special day for
it
us.
Is.
We try and go to the beach every year around that time.
Y'all water people, y'all love water.
We love water.
Yes, you do.
We love the water. And this year, I just went out in the water and I let it just washes over me, and it's cleansing, and it's a time for our family to bond. It's a time for us, it's close to the 4th, time for us to just appreciate each other and freedom and celebrate our family, which I think, for me, until I had Levi, and I think it's this way for a lot of mothers, and I think it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing, but when you have a baby, you kind of expect things to just go right.
True.
You kind of, and the thought that something would go wrong never really crossed my mind. And so, just appreciating the miracle of a million things have to go right when we have children and bring children into the world. And,
that's right.
And it truly is a miracle. Anyway, I'm digressing, girl. I could talk and talk, but
you know how we do.
Yeah.
Well, when we return from the break, we'll continue our conversation with Terri Reynolds, who will share how the experience of infant loss led her to create Levi's Grace. We'll have more of her story after the break.
Got a story, community program, or event you'd like to share? You can be our guest on the IC Lounge. We also offer sponsorship opportunities that are designed to reach the customers you want most. Email us at info@icdiversity.com or call 334-625-6773.
Property fraud is one of the fastest growing areas of fraud in the country today.
REACT is designed to protect your property and to give you peace of mind. By signing up, you'll receive an email notification if a document is filed against your property.
This program is a game changer. It has the potential to prevent fraud and protect countless homeowners throughout Montgomery County.
Protect your home with REACT. Sign up today.
Want to transform your workplace environment? Imperial Consulting Services Group collaborates with organizations of any size to build diverse, inclusive, tech-driven workplaces through fostering responsible leadership and cultivating engaged employees. We offer DEI and belonging consulting and training, strategic planning, and professional, organizational, and design services. Put our proven strategies to work for you. Schedule your appointment today at imperialcsg.com.
We're back. Terri, your experience led you to create Levi's Grace, not just to honor Levi, but to help others who are going through this experience. Why was that important to you?
It's the legacy. And we call Levi's Grace a legacy foundation. And I think the impetus for that was for me and my co-founder, and I want to tell you our story, but wanting mothers and families to know that when you say goodbye, that's not the end of your child's legacy.
That's right.
And I think we live in a world where we're expected to take our pains and our traumas and tuck them down deep and keep going forward. And with this, we didn't want families and moms to feel like they had to tuck it down deep.
Yeah, you don't have to suppress it.
You don't have to suppress it.
That's right.
And you can talk about your child. And if it makes people uncomfortable, they'll be all right. That child has a legacy. That child has changed your life. And we wanted to create a safe space to honor that. And so I say we, and I talk about how God works in our lives and brings us to people he wants us to be brought to. My dear, dear friend from college, Constance Ball-Sershan, went through the same thing that I had gone through 10 years prior. I'm talking like me and her like this. And her daughter had a trisomy. Her name was Emma Grace, thus Levi's Grace. And she had a genetic disorder that fell within the trisomy family. And the doctors told her the exact same thing. I remember her going through this. I remember her having the soft marker. I remember them finding out that she had this. I remember her sharing with me at the time. I wasn't married and didn't have children, so I couldn't fully grasp, but I knew she was going through a very difficult moment in her life.
You mentioned in the midst of your story, share what the soft marker.
So it's like for us, and I'm not sure what it was for Emma Grace, but for us it's a nuchal fold reading, and like there's like this little fold in the neck skin when your child is in utero they measure that's supposed to be this tiny, length. And if it's over like 1 or something like that, it's a soft marker for some sort of genetic disorder.
So is that during the ultrasound when they do those measurements on
yes.
the ultrasound?
And they do that. Constance, I believe, was over 35 when she was pregnant with Emma Grace, or nearing that age where they did the extra things.
Gotcha.
And same with me as well. And so I think hers was also the nuchal fold reading. It was for me. That was the soft marker. Her doctors told her saying things like, hey, it's a soft marker. Let's not worry yet. We're going to come back, do this next thing, and we'll really be able to tell. I mean, when I tell you, it was almost the exact same scenario, except with her situation, the doctor said that Emma Grace probably wouldn't make it past. She might be stillborn. If she did live, she'd only have a few hours. And she lived for 90 days after that. And maybe 70, I'll check. But it's either 70 or 90 days after that. And which is a miracle. And so Constance and her husband and her son were able to have her at home. And she was, and was the equivalent of like hospice care, so they had to take a lot of extra measures to keep her safe and healthy while she was there. But she was able to be with her family, go home, experience her mom and her brother and her dad. And so that was a miracle in and of itself. I remember going to Emma Grace's service and remember just being there for Constance as she, tried to heal from this very tragic, hard, kind of, again, the same thing, this drawn out grieving process was there when she found out she was having her rainbow baby as well. And so like literally everything that I was going through, Constance had been through.
Wow.
And so it was just kind of a natural fit, like after this happened and we started talking, like for us to do something to honor our babies together. It couldn't be by accident that we've been this close for all these years, and these genetic disorders that happen to one in 100,000 children happen to both of us. And so we really felt driven to just do this, and we've kind of built it as it's gone. We've done some webinars, we sponsor some events typically around the holiday season. We give donations to families who are in need, because while we think it's important to care for our unborn children, we know that there are mothers who have their children who are struggling and need that support too. Constance is a counselor, and so one of the big projects that we have going into the next year is we really want to make sure that mothers, fathers, and families who've experienced this loss have access to grief counseling.
Right.
And sooner rather than later. For me, it was later because I was hard-headed, and I had people telling me, like, hey, you need to get someone to help you through this. And when I finally did.
So why do you think that was? Were you in denial, or did you think you could get over it on your own? Or, it's just like, I don't need to go see or the thing that's taboo about counselors said, I don't need a counselor. That's crazy to me.
Yeah, it was none of that. I'm a big fan of mental health. I think for me, this is me as a person, I'm just someone who my go-to when I experience pain is to tuck it away and keep it moving. That's the nature. Like, I got to keep going. I got to get this done. The baby need this. I got to do this for work. I ain't got to. I deal with that when I deal with it. I'm fine.
Power ain't gonna stop.
Yes, that's right.
The children still need. Yeah,
that's right. That's what it was, and I also think it was easier for me to tuck it away, because I knew when it came back up, the tears was gonna come, the pain, the guilt. I felt, and we haven't talked about this, and I think it's important for me to say this, Angela, like for me, I felt a ton of personal guilt when we lost Levi, because, as I mentioned, we had Nova, my oldest daughter's second child, was still little. And so my initial instinct when we found out we were pregnant, I was like, ooh, what we gonna do? And looking back, I felt guilty about that, because after we found out that he was sick, the only thing I wanted was my healthy son. I just wanted him to be healthy. And after we lost him, there was immense guilt that I dealt with. And internally, I didn't want to have to go through the pain of addressing that. I didn't want to have to relive it. But you can tuck stuff away, but it's still there.
Absolutely.
And it manifests itself.
Yes, it does.
And for me, it manifested itself in ways that, I can look back and say, I did that because of this. I responded that way because I didn't handle this. And so, I've dealt with it now. I'm dealing with it now. I'm still talking about this with my counselor. I have a grief counselor, someone who specializes in grief, and which has been great because grief can compound. So you got a grief of this, grief of losing your dad, grief of losing your health. And so if anyone's listening for guidance, I cannot emphasize enough to try and find you a good counselor to walk through this with you, to walk through with your family, to help you communicate how you feel, what you need. I needed that. I think everybody needs it. But that's one of the big things that we want to do through Levi's Grace, is just make sure that families and mothers have that access, that if money is an issue, we don't want that to be an issue. I know one thing that's difficult when you trying to find a counselor or a therapist is finding the right person.
That's right.
And, that can be daunting when you go to somebody and, I don't like that person too much. And then do you go on to the next person? So that's one of the things that Constance and I talk a lot about, is like, how can we build a system out where people can find someone that's a good fit for them, hopefully the first time, maybe the second time, and also remove the financial aspect of it.
So when you say that, so Levi Grace, are you saying you all help people find grief counselors?
Yeah.
And is that something you all provide the financial means for them too?
So the way we do it now is we have some mothers reach out to us directly for that, and so when they do, we make referrals.
Okay.
But what we want to do is create a more structured way of doing that. So where we don't have the capacity right now as an organization to advertise that, but what we want to do is get to a point where we have a network of counselors that we work with in both Alabama and Tennessee. So Levi's Grace is in 2 states, and most of our work in Alabama is here in Montgomery, most in Tennessee is in Memphis. But we want to have a network of grief counselors that we work with closely so that people can come to us and automatically kind of be referred versus me and Constance or interns we're working with doing our research and trying to make connections. We feel like that's a critically important part of what we're called to do through the organization. Then the other thing that we want to do is normalize conversations like this, where we're talking safe spaces to talk, to say, the things that we're told we're not supposed to say out loud about how we're feeling, and creating safe spaces and connecting mothers with mothers, fathers with fathers, children with children in some instances who have, seen their parents go through this difficult experience.
They're more aware of what's going on.
Yes.
I agree.
Yeah.
What advice would you give parents who are going through this type of experience or have this going on?
I think the first thing, if anybody's listening has heard me, I lean heavily on my faith. That was the thing that really got me through. And I say that recognizing everybody has different paths. Whatever that thing is that uplifts you, that feeds your spirit, lean into that. Don't shy away from that.
That's right.
That's my first piece of advice. My second piece of advice is don't isolate from the people who are physically present with you. And I know that's hard.
Easier said than done.
It's easier said than
try
done.
not to.
Try not to.
That's
and
right.
and give your baby steps. So, I'm going to go watch a TV show with my husband tonight. I'm going to sit here and then I might go get in the bed and eat my ice cream and do whatever it is to do. But really try to be intentional about not completely isolating yourself. And then the other thing is, and I can't emphasize this enough, if you don't feel like you have a doctor that is listening to you, find one that will.
That's right.
Find one that will. One of the things that I take great comfort in with Levi is that I know that we did everything that we could to give him a chance, everything within our power, until we just finally released that that was not the plan for his life. We had doctors that we felt great about. We had doctors that listened to us, and I think that's important to find doctors. And I say that for even moms that may not have kids yet but are thinking about it, or pregnant and everything's fine. Get you a doctor that has your back and that believes in you, because you say, I'm telling you I'm hurt and I don't feel right. Okay, well, we're going to figure this out together. Right. Those are my 3 pieces of advice, really. But those first 2, I think, are important. To don't isolate yourself, because it's impossible to get through it alone and come out whole.
Right.
I'm starting to feel whole for the first time in 5 years, and it has literally been a 5-year process of trying to get to where I'm at, and I still got work to do, if I'm being honest, Angela. Right. So
I can only imagine. I understand. So, is there anything our viewers could do to support Levi's Grace?
Sure. Well, we have our website is www.levisgrace.org, and so anyone that wants to support with a financial donation is welcome to go to the website and make a financial donation. You also, if that's not where you are, you could go to our social media channels. We're very active on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter as well. Facebook is where we have a lot of our conversation going. So Facebook out of the three is probably the best one. And we really try to post there a lot of facts about childbirth, about infant loss, grief. So, if you're looking for certain pointers or ideas of how to help someone that may be going through this or markers to look for, probably can find it there. Anyone that is in need of our service or in need of our support, you can reach us by email at info@levisgrace.org. I do want folks to know we get emails from folks. Constance and I have just gotten on Zoom calls with people that we don't know, and just have had conversations. And so anything that is within our power as an organization to do to support, we're going to do that.
Awesome. I love it. Well, thank you, Terri, for sharing your story to our listeners. We hope today's episode has provided comfort and support to those who need it most. Remember, you are not alone. I'm Angela Washington, and thanks for joining me in the IC Lounge. Until next time, take care and be kind to yourselves.
Promotional consideration is provided by the following sponsors. The Dentistry for Children. From your infant's first tooth to maintaining your teenager's full set. Dr. Lakeisha Thomas and the staff at the Dentistry for Children can help your child maintain a happy, healthy smile. With 2 locations in Montgomery and Wetumpka. For more information, call 334-277-6830. Levi's Grace Incorporated, a legacy foundation. Our mission is to help families rediscover joy after the devastating loss of a pregnancy or newborn due to neonatal genetic or chromosomal disorders, and to be a resource to all families impacted by stillbirth or early infant loss. For more information, visit levisgrace.org. House of Greek, specializing in custom Greek and collegiate apparel, located in the heart of Midtown Montgomery at 2001 Mulberry Street. For more information, call 334-593-2738. Pink Velvet Accessories and more, where our passion for fashion and commitment to customer satisfaction leaves our customers empowered, confident, and inspired. For more information, visit the store at 2842 Zelda Road or call 334-593-1330. And Hope Psychiatric Consultants, where we do therapy differently. For more information, visit virtual-hope.com or call 334-593-2758.
Property fraud is one of the fastest growing areas of fraud in the country today.
REACT is designed to protect your property and to give you peace of mind. By signing up, you'll receive an email notification if a document is filed against your property.
This program is a game changer. It has the potential to prevent fraud and protect countless homeowners throughout Montgomery County.
Protect your home with REACT. Sign up today.